Oh, we are live. Hi, Kesha. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Thank you so much. I'm genuinely excited to be here.
Yo, okay, so let me give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Vervent. If you're a GP or LP looking to simplify capital raising and deployment process, Vervent is here to help. Trusted by over 800 funds and managing more than $2 billion in transactions, Vervent offers a secure, streamlined payment platform designed specifically for private capital markets. Say goodbye to manual reconciliation and repeated follow-ups. Raise and deploy capital faster and with greater transparency. Ready to make your fund operation smoother? Visit Vervent.com or actually use our bit.ly link, please, and see how easy it can be. Okay. Okay, so to start the show, I want to first of all like give a quick shout out to our mutual Greg for introducing us at our dinner, and it was so fun. And I just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he's like awesome, and
I
maybe
love Greg. I
right, me too.
yeah, we
Greg, if you're listening to this. But
we
yeah.
love you and you're great. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Okay, so to start the show, I wanna like give the audience a little bit of your background. So I didn't know that you started a nonprofit. Like you started a nonprofit before, and then you work at GSVlabs, and then before you joined BDev Ventures. Why don't we start with like what were some core early on career lessons that you've learned early on that kind of shape you into who you are today?
That's a good question. So for anyone listening, we did not prepare.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So it
I
takes me a
did. I mean,
second.
I listened to
That's a good one.
yeah.
Um,
Wait.
yeah, I learned a ton early on. I also, I think starting the nonprofit. So
Mhm,
we had this technology. I was working with a postdoc at Stanford, Todd Gaviglio, who's also incredible, and we built this technology where students could we could improve literacy rates through conversation. So it's a concept called dialogue journaling. It's very well researched, very studied. It's been around for a long time, actually. But it's basically where you write back and forth with an adult
mhm,
about things that interest the children. And through that process, kids are able to improve their literacy rates by like significantly more than they would in a more traditional classroom setting. And so we were working with schools in East Palo Alto as well as East San Jose. We worked with the Boys and Girls Club and others, and it was wonderful. We had a great program. I have to this day have never hustled that hard. Um, it is difficult to build.
mhm.
It's hard, and especially in the nonprofit world where you can't go out and raise venture capital, you have to ask for donations. Was an interesting experience.
Mhm.
We did initially, so we got some really great donors. I think it taught me a lot about how to work with people. It taught me a lot about partnerships. So we had a partnership with every major tech company here in the Bay
Mhm.
for this little tiny program, in East Palo Alto that started in East Palo Alto. And that really, like, we had engineers from Oracle, Facebook, Google
Mhm.
supporting this project
Mhm.
for free,
Mhm.
uh, which was incredible. And, I had a lot of support and input, and we had these people could join as like what we call digital buddies. So the people
Mhm.
were actually writing with the students, and we
Mhm.
had so much fun with it. Um, but I hustled. And I think the probably the biggest takeaway that for myself that I learned that really helped me make career decisions later on was that I did it by myself, and that sucked.
Mhm.
Like it's so much easier for me, everybody's different, but for me, it's so much easier to get up in the morning when you don't want to, because not every morning you're not like, woohoo, it's Monday, it's 7 a.m. Let's go.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're like, all right, well, this sucks. I'm tired and I don't want to be here. And when it's just for you, it's really easy to be like, I'll work 30 minutes late and I'll just like sleep in or
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, this is a silly example, but when it's for me, at least, when it's for someone else, when I feel like I have accountability, especially to my team, I find it super motivating. So yeah, I've never done anything solo since. And I wouldn't. And one day I may
Mhm.
start genuinely start another company, but it would not be as a solo founder.
For sure.
that's a tough life. Yeah.
Wait, so like, did you know that you were gonna start a nonprofit, or was this something supposed to be like for profit, or like you were thinking about like actually making it like a like revenue driven business by like kind of like turn into a nonprofit, or it
Yeah.
seems like it's like a side hustle because like I feel like this thing was like also along with your other job in like German Accelerator, like GSVlabs and stuff like that.
Yeah, we did. We actually, so we initially thought this was, you have to, the context of when we
Mhm.
built this was like Coursera was getting funded, or like ed tech
Mhm.
was
What's the thing?
the, yes, it was like people, this is the next big wave of technology. This,
Mhm.
it's such an antiquated system and it's still so people based, and like we're going to change the world. And we did get some interest. We did have revenue streams, right? It wasn't that we couldn't create that, but we realized pretty quickly, like within the first year, that people, yeah, there's not a lot of money in education.
Mhm.
And I think what we realized was this was not going to be, what I understood early on was that this probably wasn't going to be my forever job. And
Mhm.
so creating the nonprofit, hiring and bringing in people, either volunteers or hiring, really helped me feel like I was creating that legacy, but I could
Mhm.
also walk away.
Mhm.
And I did, and I became a board member. Yeah, it was, yeah, education was it. And I ended up going to GSVlabs after, which GSV Capital. So GSVlabs was the early stage arm of GSV Capital. And GSV Capital is the number one ed tech investor at the time. They had ASU GSV, which was the largest ed tech conference. They were, so writing 50 million plus checks to late stage, like Lyft, Lime, Coursera,
Mhm.
Spotify, kind of in that space. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I Okay, maybe we could start with like, what was kind of like building the strategic partnerships look like back then when you joined like GSVlabs, and then how do you kind of like translate that into like how it helps with like the investment and stuff?
um that's a good point. So I think ultimately the thing I loved about partnerships, and I don't, not sales. I understand sales. I can sell if I need to. It's not my favorite thing in the world. Sales tends to be a little more transactional.
Mhm.
Fine. It's the, we all know why we're here, right?
Mhm.
But I think with partnerships, you do genuinely get to find that win-win.
Mhm.
And it is about creating something that's sustainable typically. Not always, right? Some partnerships can be very point in time, but I think that's very much so related to investing.
Mhm.
Because if I'm investing in a company, can I fight for better terms?
Mhm.
Yeah. And, but like at some point you have to ask yourself as an investor, is this good for this company?
Mhm.
Because my success is quite literally their success. Now it should be fair, right? Like you can't give them money and say, oh, well, you're really nice, you keep it. Um,
Mhm.
but I do think creating that win-win between partnerships within investing, I also think there's just a huge amount of like, my job is very relationship driven. My
Mhm.
job is very, just being able to talk to people and
Mhm.
go to events and I really enjoy that kind of stuff. Being able to have a conversation, get to know someone, and then, without ruining the conversation, being able to also say like, hey, I think that we can do this together. And I think it's a skill early on in my career that I didn't appreciate, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like it wasn't until much later and I had seen other people in that role that I really appreciated how challenging partnerships can be, and also how rewarding, right? I mean, so much revenue can be driven through a good partnership.
Mm. Can we talk about, I guess, like for like the German accelerators, like how do you kind of like build up that program? And what was like the program kind of look like? Is it like for, German people to like German builders or like German founders to like come to the US, or was it more towards like the Silicon Valley people trying to sell to German or like German based like companies, or like how was it? How did it get started? I know that you also built out like the New York office as well. Like tell us more about like how do you kind of like think about building a salary program for a
Yeah.
country?
So, so I joined German Accelerator is really cool. They're still up and running, and I encourage anyone who is eligible for their program to apply. It's
Mhm,
a wonderful thing that the government sponsors.
mhm,
Um, Basically, so I joined German Accelerator, been around for a while. I joined theirs to run their Silicon Valley programs,
mhm,
and then very quickly was running their US program. So I took over the
mhm,
work program as well. And COVID happened,
mhm,
right? And I'll be honest, day one was like, oh, it's not good.
mhm,
But then day two, it was like, all right, well, it's an opportunity. Let's go. And we
mhm,
completely restructured everything about those programs. My first, when I joined, I want to say there were 3 companies in the first cohort. But there had been, one company in cohorts, like
mhm,
the cohort before I joined. It just was difficult. And this was not just me, right? I mean, there were amazing people there. But through a lot of hard work and restructuring the program, my last cohort was 45.
mhm,
So we were able to build something that really, I think, spoke more toward what founders needed in that moment, that was a little more flexible. Because previously it had been set up like a very traditional accelerator program where it's like you
mhm,
have to be in person, either
mhm,
in New York or in Silicon Valley, every day for a quarter, right? Or every
mhm,
week for a quarter, which is just not realistic
mhm.
for
I
founders.
have Wait, I have a question for you. So, like for GSVlabs, so for example, when you're doing the partnerships, was it for, obviously right now, like I go on the German accelerator website, there's like, you get like, discount or like benefit program and like I guess like there's like also mentoring and stuff like that. So was it more of like self-help type of accelerator, or was it more towards like an actual structure, like a on deck or something back then to like, in the morning. I don't know. Like, I don't even think on deck was that structure. I think it was like, is there like actual programming among that starter, or was it more towards like, yeah, we'll just like invest like, in 45 companies and like same check for everybody, and then you do you kind of vibe. How was that starter kind of like set up?
Um, a little bit of both. So we had a
Mhm,
curriculum. We had very clear like courses where we would bring in
mhm,
experts to speak to different things.
mhm,
Um, and everything actually, like everything from HR to fundraising to
mhm,
immigration law to everything.
mhm,
Um, in addition to that, so the program was 3 components. It was the coursework,
mhm,
the individual mentoring hours. So everyone had an
mhm,
allotted number of mentoring hours.
mhm,
They had a lead mentor, and we kind of forced them to work together with them in a bit
mhm,
of a structure, creating goals, and then we would sign off on goals and expect to
mhm,
see some result. Yeah, basic like OKRs, right, or KPIs.
mhm.
And then the third component was a mix of kind of perks, right? So you have free office space in
Mhm,
Palo Alto, San
mhm,
Francisco, and New York City, in Tribeca. Like, take
mhm,
advantage. You
mhm,
have huge discounts on, yeah, everything, right? Like
mhm.
AWS to Google to Gusto, whatever.
Do you have to manually actually find these like mentors or like the accelerator packages? Like do you have to like build out these things like yourself by like, cold outreach, or like what does it kind of like look like for you?
Yeah. We built out a lot of it. So, I mean, I definitely didn't like German Accelerator existed before me, and there was a great
Mhm,
starting point.
mhm,
But we built out a lot. As far as
mhm,
so I'd say on the mentor side, a
mhm,
huge part of my job was being active, knowing our mentors. Also,
mhm,
we did a lot of mentor matching, which was honestly probably one of the more difficult components of running an accelerator is trying to match, because you're not matching not just for industry
mhm,
or expertise, but you're also
mhm,
matching for personality. Um,
mhm,
that's the reality of it, right? Like if you're about to open your business to someone, you need to like
mhm,
them or at least respect them, right? I mean, it
mhm,
can be a push pull, but um, I think that took a lot. As far as the perks partners, and we've actually built this out at BDev Ventures as well. It's something I started here, although I'm certainly not the only person that works on it today.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 or 20 were pretty intentional, right? Like, okay, what are the biggest benefits that our startups could take advantage of? Let's go get those. And then, I don't know if I should admit this, but it's often pretty organic today. Either I run into someone or meet someone or I'm approached by one of these, a service provider, or the opposite, where one of our founders comes to us and says, hey, do you guys have like discounts or deals with so-and-so? And we're like, not yet. Give us a minute. Let's try. But it is, that kind of stuff is a big business. And there are businesses that only offer startups like access to those types of benefits.
For sure. I wonder, okay, maybe we could start with BDev Ventures since, that's like, I guess like, maybe we could start with like, what is the general concept for BDev Ventures? Obviously, you guys offer helps for, basically the go-to-market strategies as well as like go-to-market help. Why don't we start with like, by maybe you can share a little bit of background of the fund, and then maybe we could dive into the check size as well as like, all the investing related things.
Yeah. BDev is relatively new. So we've only been around, we've been active for about 3.5 years, maybe coming up on 4 years. We invest B2B software, kind of late seed through Series B. We're a single LP fund, which is quite unique about us. And everyone on the leadership team has like real world operator experience, right? Like we've been founders, we've worked for startups, we've raised capital, which I do think gives us a unique edge. At least it gives us a unique, I don't know, a way to relate to founders, right? Because it's like, hey, like I've personally cried those tears. Like, I know what it's like. So Nacho DeMarco is an LP. He's also a partner at BDev Ventures, and he started a company called Buyers Dev. And Buyers Dev is one of the, huge successes out of LATAM. So it's a LATAM tech unicorn. They're still one of the fastest growing companies in their category. They've been around for, I should know this, I want to say 16 years-ish. Just don't, we'll Google that later. I think about 16 years, but still growing like wildfire. Nacho lives here in San Francisco. And one of the cool things I think about Nacho is that they tried to raise venture capital, or they explored that, and it just wasn't available to them, right? He's Argentinian. His co-founder and kind of right hand is Fer Galano, who's amazing. Also Argentinian. They really struggled to fundraise. Just didn't feel like it felt like it was venture capital dollars were very expensive and didn't bring a lot of benefits. And so one of the concepts behind BDev Ventures is that it's still venture capital. I think venture capital dollars are expensive, and we can talk about that. But we are adding a lot of value. So some of the tools that Nacho built and really believes like were the true core of his success with Buyers Dev are around lead generation. And so we've taken those, created third-party companies. There's no conflict of interest because we're not a corporate venture fund, and we're not trying to be. There's no M&A here. There's no strategic connection. We're fully independent. But we've taken these tools and we're now giving them to our portfolio companies. It's actually even a part of diligence. We'll run a pilot. And the tools are mostly focused around lead generation. Today, we make up somewhere between 4 and 65% of all new revenue for our portfolio companies, which is pretty cool. I think the average is like right around 20%. And it changes a little. It's been 19, it's been 21. We do an analysis of this every few months. But we're very proud of, we're really able to help our portfolio companies in a way that I think is super meaningful. As someone who has, founded a company, you yourself can appreciate What do
Mhm.
founders need? They need money.
Mhm.
They need revenue and they need sales.
Mhm.
So
I wonder, so for example, when I guess like when the fund just started, like how do you guys kind of define like which company to go after? And I guess like when I guess like for buyer staff, it's kind of like a software development company. So I guess like maybe we could share a little bit more of like the company's background on like, and then when it comes to like go to market, I guess like for you guys to help them with lead gen for like 4 to 65% of revenue, like what kind of company would actually suits a like bracket to even like start with?
yes. Okay, so I'm going to answer them in reverse order.
Hmm.
I'm going to try. You
Hmm.
might have to remind me by the end. Okay, so which companies work really well with us, and how did we figure that out?
Hmm.
So we, in our first year, ran over 1,000 pilots. We were very honest with founders. Hey, we're not sure if this is going to work.
Hmm.
we're not sure what our sweet spot is, right? And a
Hmm.
big part of our thesis is we want to invest in companies where we can help them grow. Now that is it's a partnership model, right? It's
Hmm.
when you grow, we grow. When you're successful, we're successful. It's
Hmm.
creating that win-win. Obviously, it's also a way for us to de-risk our investments.
Hmm.
We're investing in companies that we know are growing.
Hmm.
We're helping them grow. So it's everybody's happy, I think, with that model. But we weren't sure. We ran so many pilots that first year. And again, very honest with companies, tried to really set the right expectations. And what we found is that we made some mistakes. So I think initially we knew the check size that we wanted to write. We knew, from the fund model and the economics where we wanted to play. So we knew it was like seed to Series B. But what we didn't understand, and I think the mistake we made early on, is that we went for companies that were too early.
Hmm.
So today we're a little more focused, I would say, as like criteria for investment, maybe like minimum criteria, late seed, 500,000 ARR with other like strong growth metrics. So maybe not quite product market fit. I would say more sales readiness. They have a product that's in the market. They have customers, they have revenue, and they've started to create this playbook whereby they're able to replicate that process. That it's no longer, maybe it's still somewhat founder sales, but they're working with SDRs now, right? So they're starting to take that sales process out of just the founder and really kind of distributing it amongst the team. That is a bit of a sweet spot for us. B2B software, right? But
Hmm.
beyond that, there are certain industries that we stay away from. So what we found is, and I'll tell you how we're combating this. Early on, it's not true anymore, but early on, we realized that the WinDifferent tool, because this tool is called WinDifferent, doesn't work very well in industries where you really need a lot of deep trust. Cybersecurity comes to mind, right? Like most companies, most CTOs are not going to buy their cyber solution because they got a cold email.
Hmm.
Most of them are looking for recommendations. They're looking for, if they're introduced by a trusted partner, like that is going to be where they're looking for cyber.
Hmm.
As an example. And there are a lot of industries where that's true. True enterprise sales, if you're only selling into the Fortune 50, also very true, right? That cold email is not going to do, I mean, it can be helpful, it can be accretive, but that's not the right strategy here. If you're selling into OEMs, if you only have 100 customers in the world, do
Hmm.
not send them cold emails.
Hmm.
Get to know them, take them out to dinner, learn their children's names. Like, don't send them cold emails.
Hmm.
Um, and so that for a long time was a real core of how we operated. Today we're actually beta testing with and the tool's up and running. The tool we know works, but we're kind of slowly launching this within our portfolio where we have this tool. We're calling it Intros Matter.
Is it
And
like a
it's
Brody or Brody? Brody?
It's similar
Bordy?
to
How do I say it? I'm sure you heard of like it's like kind of like AI making introduction to so and so, that kind of stuff.
I'm on Bordy, actually, yeah. I
Yeah,
got invited by one of their early investors where it, like, calls
yeah,
you and it's like,
yeah.
"Hey,
Is
like,
it
tell me about
similar to that?
yourself," and then
Yeah, yeah.
N no, I think Bordy is more organic.
Mhm,
This tool quite literally, it ingests your contacts.
mhm,
Look at a lot there's a very advanced machine learning algorithm that looks at a lot of different factors to kind of rate your
mhm,
relationships.
mhm.
Um, Not rate in the sense of like, this is a good one, you should keep it, but like rate in the sense of like, you actually know this person, right? It's not
Right,
just
right,
some
yeah.
random.
Like affinity or something?
Yeah. So like you really like you have some maybe there's overlap in your career, or maybe you've sent messages back and forth, whatever it is. Like you actually know this person, and it's doing that for your first connections, but also your second and third connections. And so
Mhm,
basically, what it does is recommends, hey, this is the perfect ICP for you. Oh my, this is it. Like you need to get in touch with this person from a company perspective, from a title perspective, maybe even some intent data. We have some intent
mhm,
data. We're building that out. And then, but you're not connected with them. So here's the best path for an introduction.
mhm,
Like this is someone that you know who actually knows this person.
mhm,
Um, and we're building that out not just for like individual founding teams, but the idea, and it's a work in progress. The idea is that the entire portfolio is on it. So we're building a community. So it's not just the founders' connections or my connections, because obviously we're helping our founders,
mhm,
but it's also like founder A might have the perfect connection for founder B, and founder B might have the perfect connection for founder C, and so
mhm,
on. So everyone's kind of getting that support from the portfolio and the community, without it being just our team.
mm.
Which is
For
pretty
sure.
cool. We're pretty active investors. So to date, we have over 80 investments in over 60 portfolio companies. So it's a
Um,
good sized community.
I wonder, so like as for the fund itself, like can you talk about like the portfolio constructions? It's like you guys invest in 60 company, 80 investment, that means like 20, it's like a 30%. Well, like it's kind of like one third of them are like full on investments. Like how much do you save for full ons? And then since like it's kind of like a solo LP moment, like do you have to fundraise or like how does like I guess like the whole um
Yeah.
I guess like fund operation kind of like look like for you?
So it is a little different because we have
Mhm,
an evergreen commitment.
mhm,
So we started off with an initial commitment of
mhm,
150.
mhm,
We now have an evergreen commitment that is,
mhm,
we have a lot of capital at our disposal. So when we think about fund, I think the one probably key difference between us and maybe a more traditional fund, we
mhm,
are a 2 and 20 model, so we are traditional in that
mhm,
sense, but we're not bound to the 10-year timeline.
mhm,
Now, I would like to point out that the 10-year timeline is also make believe in that the vast majority of funds do not close within 10 years. That is
mhm,
not accurate. That's the goal.
mhm,
Typically, I recently read this, and please don't quote me. I want to say like
mhm,
14
mhm,
years or 15 years is the average.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
because
been super long.
yeah, you don't want to force if you have a good investment and
Mhm,
you're talking to these founders, you don't want to force them to exit into a bad market. You don't want to force them to exit before the timing is right, or whatever
mhm,
the case may be. So having that ability to,
mhm,
I think, was really important. And for us at BDev Ventures, we're evergreen, so we don't have that timeline, which means that we get to be very patient capital.
mhm,
So what does that mean for us? It means a few things. One, we're happy to involved in seed strapping. Like, oh, you're seed strapping? Cool. Like we're happy to be a part of that.
mhm,
We are for follow on. We do reserve quite
mhm,
a lot of capital for follow on. That being said, today's our largest check is 3 million. So
mhm,
we're not, even within a Series B, that's more. Hey, you love the software, you love us. Like we get
mhm,
some allocation, but like, let's be honest, we're not writing $10 million checks.
mhm,
I don't know what the future holds. I think there's probably
mhm,
Yes, like there's definitely opportunity to explore an opportunity fund. It's not something we're doing today, but it's something we've been approached about. So, LPs getting a part of that action as our portfolio grows. We'll see.
For sure. I wonder when it comes to actually um navigating, like picking which portfolio company. Maybe we could start with, like, can you walk us through from like meeting a portfolio founder to like diligence it to like winning the deal to thinking about exiting. So like you can give the audience an example of like how you guys kind of like work alongside the founder.
Yes. Our diligence process is unique. And I hope that's a good thing, but it is unique. So it's typical, company, we meet a startup somehow. Maybe, actually, I know for a fact, most often that's through an introduction. So that is about 70% of our portfolio is we've met through an introduction, typically from other investors.
Mhm,
And so we get introduced, we have an initial call.
mhm,
Interesting. I'd like to learn more. We gather some preliminary data. So at this point, we're not, we'll ask for a data room and a P&L, but we're not doing reference checks yet, right? So it's still
mhm,
pretty internal. We're kind of taking everything at face value.
mhm,
And then we will, the team, so anyone will submit this. We have like a subcommittee of the
mhm,
IC that reviews companies at this stage. And so
mhm,
basically the IC is like, is this worth moving forward? Right? Just
mhm,
based on, like, without doing 100 hours of diligence, based on 5-6 hours of work, is this something we want to explore more? And
mhm,
then once approved, we'll ask a lot. Typically, that's not like okay, great, everything looks good. Typically, it's like, well, tell me about this, and I don't know, I've got some questions here. Um, but it doesn't matter, anyone on the team. So whether it's an associate, maybe a partner would just approve their own. But
mhm,
beyond that, everybody else is kind of going through this process.
mhm,
And then once the IC is like, yep, we're on board, let's try it, we will run a pilot.
mhm,
And so typically what that looks like today is, it is long. It is like the one catch to BDev is our diligence cycle is too long. I know it's too long. We're trying to fix it. But that's somewhere typically between 2 and even 4 months of, like,
Wait, can you
yeah,
share a little bit more about the pilot
yeah,
situation? So is that like, you use the software to be like, hey, like Grace, you're like building, I don't know, AISDR, or like, I don't know, like let's talk now about AISDR because I feel like the tool itself is kind of AISDR. But like, let's say like you and I are building, I don't know, like, what can we build? Maybe like software for dentists to schedule appointments, right? So like, I mean,
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the whole vibe right now, the vertical AI space.
You are not wrong.
Um,
Um,
Okay, so
yeah.
yeah,
So
and
we
then
would
how
literally, yeah, we'd literally set up a campaign and start reaching out to dentists or buyers for whoever your target market
right.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, yeah, let's say, like,
Yeah,
dentists are purchasing this to, like, schedule appointments and stuff.
yeah.
Okay, and then, like, your team will come in and then be like, "Hey, let's, like, run this AI situation," and then if it works, you know what? Like, I may start racing today. I'm just kidding. So, that's, like, such a good value prop. So, like, you kind of help them test out if this thing will work on them, right?
So even when we don't invest,
Mhm.
I mean, not every founder is excited when we don't invest, right? Like that's definitely,
Yeah,
it's not a
yeah,
good feeling.
yeah.
But we have had a lot of feedback where it's like, even though you didn't invest, we learned a lot. We learned
Mhm.
because we'll do a ton of A/B testing with messaging, and we'll even play with different ICP data. And
This all the AI thing, right? Is this all the
yeah,
AI
so it is
situation?
a
Okay.
bot. Yeah. So basically, what it does is we have a proprietary database of about 300 million leads. And
Mhm,
there's a bot that goes in, the machine learning algorithm goes in, it finds the right connection for we feed it all of the ICP data. So it finds the
mhm,
right connection at the company level, at the individual level, looks at any intent data that we might
mhm,
have in the database. And I think the key here is it reaches out, it is GDPR compliant. So it reaches out in a soft cadence. We're not sending 10 emails a week to potential leads. It's a very, like, I think literally every 21 days is the most that we can send in a campaign. And so the idea is that it's a slow drip, it's soft, you're not annoying people. But also you're targeting, it's like genuinely targeted, right? So this is not, you're not spraying everyone, like it is targeted. And then we just wait for results. I say between 2 and 4. We're not looking necessarily for people to close deals in that period, but we want to know directionally, like, are we adding value? Can we move the needle meaningfully? Assuming their close rate is more or less what it has been. From that perspective, you know, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about your company, your messaging, your ICP, even if we don't invest. And if we do invest, then we crank that up quite a bit. So, you know, with the pilot, we're running like 1, maybe 2 campaigns. With a investment, we're running as many as we want to. And a lot of our founders use that not only for, and as well as now Interest Matter, not only for potential prospects, but investors in their next round, partners, etc. So we can add a lot of value in that way.
Love that. Okay, so I have a question about the 300 million database. Like, okay, so this is like actually now the first time I heard about people have proprietary database, but like what does that what does that entail? Like, is that like people actually can purchase certain type of like email lists from people, or like how is like the database kind of like construct? Is that like from the the mother company, buyer staff, like, or like how does like, I guess, like, without giving us like the entire detail, like, okay, who is on the database, it's more of like the direction of like, where does the database even come from?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different sources,
Right.
like a lot. And there's definitely some like opt-in stuff on websites. There's like some public domains. There's a lot of public domain stuff. There's a lot. The one thing there isn't is, and I think this is an important point, we're never ingesting our startups email, like any emails or whatever they might have. And specifically because then it's no longer GDPR compliant. So if we start ingesting any and all email addresses we can find, we lose compliance. So we're not doing that. It does also have a feature where it can send LinkedIn messages. We don't usually do that in pilot, but we're also able, so you can run a campaign where it's, you know, I always use email as the example, but you could run a campaign where it's like email, LinkedIn. Yeah. WhatsApp is next.
Okay, so among these like 1,000 campaign that you've done, how much money and resources like do you have to kind of spend? Because I feel like that's kind of a lot, because yeah, like, I mean, like, also running 1,000 at the same time. So how do you guys like even track the result? It's like, X amount of people open, X amount of people click on XYZ link, and then this result in X amount of sales. Like, is there like an internal infra build up based off that?
Yes. So it is those. It's also, we track when it comes. So if we're targeting a specific individual and then they open the website and like fill out a contact form, right? Like any indication that this email created some action. So we track that. I mean, not forever. I think we have like a 6-week window on it. We can track if the email is forwarded, things like that. Beyond that, though, not as much as you would think. Like, we're really, it's, hey, is this an effective sales campaign? And we're looking at all the traditional metrics. And if so, do we feel confident, given our database, given our data, that we can continue to run a good campaign for you? And if so, let's do it. Keeping in mind that, this is we're looking to move the needle somewhere between 4 and 65%. I hope it's, closer to 20, 30% of new revenue. But the idea here isn't like, this should not be your only sales avenue. This shouldn't be your only, outreach that you're doing. Is it beneficial? Are we helping you de-risk a little bit? And if so, then we look at, so we were talking about the timeline. So after a pilot, we jump into what I would consider a more traditional diligence. right? So we're kind of digging through that data room, building an investment memo for the IC, or building out, because we have like kind of the beginnings of one already. And then we are at that point, that's where we're doing like all of our reference checks and all of our, because we're investors, right? Now we are minority investors. We prefer not to lead rounds. So sometimes that also, is a lot of that is talking to the other investors in that round or previous rounds, getting to know others on the cap table.
What is the industry benchmark for, I don't know, like annual contract value, or like how frequently you close out leads for a certain category of companies? So for example, I guess like when you guys are choosing the category, is there like any specific category that you find like, wow, like through the insights that like it's like closing better leads than others versus like, I think some of the industry may already be like too saturated. Like how do you think of like which industry based off like the experience that you have run, like 1,000 pilot, like among that 1,000 pilot, like who does well, like what kind of companies actually does well with these kind of email campaigns?
There are different, so we have different expectations as far as like what's a good campaign, right? Like benchmarking, what's a good campaign. Different expectations for geography, like so geographical regions, as well as ICP, like target, lead, industry. So for example, if you are targeting the US, your conversion rate is going to be probably the lowest overall, because we're bombarded, right? And Americans, like I have no problem, as an American, I have no problem just like delete. I don't know you, delete. Yeah, for better or worse. No judgment. LATAM is much higher because email marketing is somewhat less common there. People are less bombarded with this, and so people are more likely to read it. I think that's regional. As far as industry, so this is interesting. There are certain industries where people are just more likely to read an email, and I have some personal theories on this. I mean, I don't actually know why.
Like what industry?
Yeah,
people like to read email.
So HR reads emails.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, if you're selling into HR, they're going to read your email. Sales, they don't read emails.
Wait, they read or they don't?
They don't. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Turns out sales teams, not so much.
They're too busy sending emails.
So that's one of my personal theories, and this is not tested, is just simply that HR just doesn't get as many emails.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. That's
so they
true.
Read them. Like maybe it's literally just how many emails do you have in your inbox every day?
Oh, yeah, like 1,000. Just like random people telling you something.
Yeah, but if you're in HR, maybe you don't, and maybe your internal emails are the volume is just lower. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
For the LATAM companies, so I'm like looking at your portfolio companies, right? So like there is, Brazilian platform that manages like, corporate health benefits to, hiring platform.
Is amazing.
Yeah. So to like hiring platform that streamlines like interview processes, or like, like management, like waste management platforms, and an online marketplace, like for payment solutions, or like, how do you think about like, among these like pilots, like how do you even compare these companies to other companies in the category? So where would you acquire the data for? Like, are we growing at like a really fast rate at all? Like how do you even think about that?
So we're gathering data from a lot of different sources, right? Everything from like Gartner to we use Harmonic internally. We really enjoy Harmonic. We also have Deal Room, Google. I don't know, like
Google.
we also have Google. It's a great tool. So we're looking at a ton of different sources. We're also, I would say, a big part of my job is also having people in my network, right? So like true experts. I am very fortunate that I have a few people who really deeply understand HR, who very
Mhm.
long careers here, who watch trends, right? So if there's not clear evidence that like, oh yeah, this is a major problem
Mhm.
and this is a great solution and there's a ton of growth here and people are super interested, they got a wait list. Like if it's not that situation, or maybe it's a little earlier, then we can, I can call those people and say, hey, what do you think about this? Like how would you approach this? And maybe even sometimes bring them in as mentors or advisors. Um, I would say we're looking at as far as data, I look at everything I can.
Mhm.
Um, kind of leave no stone unturned. But
Mhm.
the truth is that a lot of my information is coming from the relationships with industry experts, like very much informed that way.
I wonder, let's say, if you're selling to the HR ecosystem, like what kind of benchmark, I guess, like how do you think about like what question to ask them to vet a deal? Like, since I feel like they wouldn't know the ARR of XYZ company, maybe they would know like how much they would spend, but like, it's also just kind of like a vibe check. It's like, hey, are you guys using X? Like, I feel like whenever I ask like people for due diligence, it's like always like there's always like a person say A and another person say B. So it's always like some random opinion from people. So
That's
how do
fair.
you think about like when you're like taking in
Yeah.
information that's like kind of like very different? There's like no pattern towards it.
Yeah. Well, I think that if there's genuinely no pattern and you're hearing a lot of different things, and oftentimes there is some independent data to back some of this up, right? Like
Mhm,
there's some study or there's some like within
mhm,
HR, we can look at employment numbers. We can look
mhm,
at the number of job listings. We can look at like what is the health of this today.
mhm,
Um, but if you can't find any data sets
mhm,
and you talk to, let's say, three industry experts who you trust, right? Because you're not just calling,
mhm,
these are people you have a relationship with, you really think are like, yeah, I like the way you think.
mhm,
And they're like, and you get three different answers. And one is like, things are going great, you should invest in this company. And one is like, I've never heard of this problem before. This seems like a solution for no one. I'm also calling their customers. So I am also, we're doing reference checks with customers. I would
mhm,
expect those to give me details as well. But
mhm,
if it's really all over the map, that suggests to me that maybe this is something of a niche problem
mhm,
where, okay, they're solving a problem, but how big is this really? Right. So then I would start asking questions around that. And to be frank, if I can't build conviction, not just in
mhm,
myself, but in the IC, because this is a decision that's
mhm,
made by a group, right? Not an individual. And
mhm,
typically, one person will kind of lead the deal, or one person will have the
mhm,
like, come on, like a bit of a champion, and then their job is to convince everyone else. And there's a lot of comparison around um, not just like other potential competitors of this company, but also
mhm.
other deals, companies within our portfolio. Like we're thinking about all of those components. Um, yeah, and if you can't like build that conviction of like, yeah, this makes sense,
Mhm.
and it's all over the map, we probably pass.
Mm. I wonder what is like a good like so for example, when the market is like kind of fragmented, let's say like, people use let's say like real estate, right? So like, let's say like people use like 50 different tools
Yeah.
or like the dentist industry or like the plumber or whatever. Like so like I think there's always like industry that are like fairly fragmented. Like when you're building a software for these people, I think everybody can take a certain amount of market and then like how do you or for these type of companies, typically the annual contract value is also very low. How do you think about like, these kind of like mass selling software, but also like have low contract value? How do you think about like these type of companies? And is there any pilot that you guys have run in like these kind of category that kind of showcase and given the data that like it was working or not working?
Yeah. So I think with companies like that,
Mhm,
when you have a really low ACV or average contract value, you need more deals. And you need to prove that the market is big. The
Mhm.
market has to be really big, right? I mean, your
Mhm.
TAM is one of the most important. I actually think investing comes down to three basic things early on, right? Is the
Mhm.
market big enough? Is this
Mhm.
the right team? Team, TAM, traction, right? It's kind of
Right.
those.
Also, like, for the tractions, like, I mean, I've been looking at, like, maybe this is, like, maybe irrelevant to you guys because you only do, like, B2B or slash SaaS. Like, so let's say, like, for example, I've been looking at, like, the music startup industry. So, like, I think the traction could be very huge looking, but on the other hand, like, I think there's no comparison from, like, company to company unless you like really chat with the existing company, but like it's kind of hard to acquire certain data because some company are actually individual owned instead of like venture backed, so they're like impossible to get to. Like, how do you kind of like even get the data that are like comparable with the company that you want to invest?
So I think you can back into it, right? You can make assumptions. If you understand the market and you understand the
Mhm.
TAM
Mhm.
and you understand their market share, which is something you can ballpark,
Mhm.
you can probably get there. So you asked me, one company that comes to mind is Pinata.
Mhm.
Pinata is amazing.
Was
Uh,
Pinata a crypto company? Because I feel like it's no. I think
not this
yeah,
one.
yeah, you mentioned about it in a different show, but I was like, I also heard about like a Pinata that's like a crypto company.
No. So Pinata, I mean, our portfolio company it's
The credit building thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
supporting renters. If you're a renter and you're listening,
Mhm.
get Pinata. It's great. But that's a good example of campaigns where that it's a massive market. It's fragmented. Like property
Mhm.
management is not a
Mhm.
straightforward industry with
Mhm.
10 big players.
Mhm.
But it's also, I think, it offers an opportunity because it's a little antiquated
Mhm.
because it's so fragmented, right? So there is, I think, a little bit of you can harness that as an opportunity.
Mhm.
Their growth when we initially did diligence on them was insane. Like
Mhm.
there was so clear traction, and their customers loved them. They were not they have a competitor, although they're less
Mhm.
competing now. And we looked at, we did our homework. We looked at everybody. We looked at their competitor. Actually, there were a few at the time. But we had a lot of conviction in the founders as well, right? We were
Mhm.
like, we like their model better. We think it's more sustainable because their business model is pretty, again, like something you can back into,
Mhm.
even just from, what are they selling?
Mhm.
Um, and so Pinata is like totally led by women.
Mhm.
Um, total badasses. And yeah,
Mhm.
we built conviction that way, even though they were smaller than their competitor.
Mhm. Um, as for that, like, I guess, like, what was about, like, their motto that's more sustainable versus, like, the competitors?
Um, so I don't know if I don't know if that is public information
Mhm.
today. But I think there's a few competitors and a big one where they're really focused on partnerships with credit cards.
Okay.
And that is very limiting, right? So
Mhm.
partnerships are great early on, but now they need to transition their business model to even be more on the financial side
Mhm.
because that's where they've really built customers and they've built traction.
Mhm.
And they've raised so much capital that they really don't have a choice but to lean into that. Whereas Pinata is still very much so focused on their core ICP, which I think
Mhm.
is really valuable.
I wonder who was their core ICP at the beginning?
Property managers.
Okay, and then, like, so what if, like, let's say, I guess, like, as for these kind of, like, fragmented market, what was the go-to-market motion? Was it just like, BDev runs our, BD campaign for us? And then, like, like, how do you know? Like, okay, so there's another thing is like, when I chat with the founder and then they will be like, oh, we're all like organic traffic. But I fear like, the organic traffic is gonna stop at some point unless, we're talking about like something crazy viral. But like, I feel like when people have like a really broad like market, so for example, you and me both can go to the dentist, everyone can go to the dentist, like, or like anything that's kind of like very broad when it comes to like the customer level, like how do you think about like a fragmented market? So like for example, property managers, like which area of property managers should we target most? Or like, is that New York or is that SF? Or like, how do you think about when people give you like a very broad?
How do you segment that? I think so. What I would always encourage every founder I talk to, I would say focus. Actually, I think distraction is one of the leading killers of small businesses. It's really easy to chase things, right? And it's really easy. Like you're selling to property managers of a certain size or in a certain region, and someone who's adjacent, but not in that what I would call a beachhead market comes knocking at your door. It can be really difficult to say no. Some of this is, I think, from a very practical, you won't hear this in a textbook, but let's be very practical together for a second. Your beachhead market should be where you have some in. Where do you have special access? And maybe, for you and I, that would probably be San Francisco, the Bay Area. If I'm living in New York, maybe it's New York. It might be where I have a potential partner. So maybe I'm, for whatever reason, like used to work at Microsoft and we're going to partner. So I'm going to Seattle because they're going to help me drive some type of growth. I would say wherever within that ICP that you've identified and you're having customer conversations, who's the most excited about what you're building and where do you have special access? And those two should drive that decision. And beachhead markets are really important. Like start in one, start with a really hyper focused, whether that's geography, company size, whatever, right? There's so many different factors there, like, but get focused early on and start to win that. And I think that's even more true with AI because now verticalization, to your point, with dentists, verticalization is really vital. We see companies going after these horizontal plays are really difficult and very expensive. So being able to go vertical and kind of own an entire space is really important. But to do that, you have to be really focused. I know we're out of time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I want to end with like a quick 30-second fire round for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite book?
The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear by Christopher Moore.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
My husband. He's
Love.
cool. Sorry, you said it's a fast one. I was the best answer I could come up with.
Okay. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
I had a teacher and a mentor when I was very young in high school, who told me I could do more and be more, and she impacted me the most by far. Her name was Miss Vi.
Where can we find you outside of work?
CrossFit. Yeah, you can judge. I love CrossFit and I love cooking and I'm hiking. I have an Airstream. I go camping a lot.
What is Airstream?
I'm in my Airstream right now. I'm in my yard, like in our driveway, but I am in, let me see if I can turn I don't know how to edit my background now that we're live.
Yo, oh my God. I don't know how to edit our background either.
Here we go. Yeah, I'm in an Airstream right now.
Oh my God, is that a van or what is going on?
It's like a big, it's a trailer. Like it's a travel trailer, but it's a cool one.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
yes.
I love that. I love your energy. Wow. Okay, Keshia, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a fun conversation.
Thank you, Grace. And if you ever want to go camping, you let me know.
Yes,
I have my kitchen that I bring with me. So.
Love. Oh my God. You're so funny.
Amazing.
Okay, let me quickly end stream. Okay, let me quickly end stream and then